Hey everyone, Laura here with RagstoRugs, and today we're going to be making an oval rag rug. We're going to be making a 24 by 34 inch crocheted rag rug, but just like our round rug and our half round videos that we posted on our YouTube channel, you'll be able to use the same pattern to create your crocheted rugs or your toothbrush, also known as your Amish knot rugs. Now this video will be set up in 3 parts. The first part I'm going to share with you just a little bit about our unique pattern, this very special pattern of mine. The second part, we're going to create a 24 by 34 inch rug together. And the last part, probably just as important as the first 2 parts, is I'm going to teach you how to use this pattern to make virtually any size rug that you want to make. So I'd like to go and get started and share with you a little bit about the pattern. 20 years ago, I wrote this pattern, and a confession to you. Some of my friends know this, many of you do not, but I'm a bit dyslexic. And if you've never heard that term, it means my brain doesn't process things the way the normal brain does. So I struggle with letters and numbers and words. So reading a pattern is a challenge to me. Reading a recipe in the kitchen is frustrating. I love to read, but I have to read every single page 2 or 3 times before my brain comprehends it. And the next day I usually forget it again. So the thing of it was that I really wanted to make these crocheted rag rugs. But it seemed that every pattern that I stumbled on that I would use, my rug would not turn out anything like I wanted it to. I was certainly not proud of it. They'd turn out all wonky, they'd be the wrong shape, the wrong size, they'd buckle, they'd waffle. And I got so frustrated that I set aside an entire summer, 20 years ago, to make a rug for me. A rug that a pattern for me, a pattern that I could use to make my rugs. Well, the cool part of it was, after a lot of labor, I was able to come up with this really unique pattern. And I made hundreds of rugs, it seemed like, probably just dozens or whatever. But I gave them to all my friends and family, and guess what? They wanted to make the rugs too, and they used my pattern, and they were successful too. So that made me really happy. So shortly after that, we produced our wonderful video. We've now sold nearly 40,000 copies of this on how to make both your oval and your round rug. Included in this video is your cheat sheet. And believe it or not, this little teeny tiny pattern right here is what I'm going to share with you today. This is all you need to know. Now, you can purchase this on our website. You can purchase this solely, this cheat sheet for your round and oval, or you can just follow along with our video today, because that's what's so cool about the YouTube videos, is that you can watch them over and over and over again, and the pattern's right there. So have a pencil ready and scribble it down. That's perfectly okay with me. More important than anything else, I just want your success. I want to share this pattern with you, and hopefully you'll be successful too. Now, again, this pattern that I'm going to share with you, you'll be able to virtually make any size rug. So if you decide you want to make a teeny tiny rug for your RV, you're going to be able to do that. Or a regular size rug for your bathroom vanity, or a larger rug for your kitchen, or perhaps a larger yet rug for your dining room, or even a bigger rug for your living room. You're going to be able to make any size rug using the pattern that I'm going to share with you today. And there's not going to be any hesitation. You're going to be fully confident. And in fact, if you've been making rugs and you want to do some custom work using this pattern, and you've got a customer that calls and she says, "Hey Laura, can you make me a 22 by 108 inch rug?" You'll be able to confidently say, "Well, of course I can." She'll love the rug you made, and you'll be very proud of it. So I admit that this pattern I'm going to share with you here in a few minutes is a bit unorthodox. I admit that it may seem strange to some of you. I admit that if you're an avid crocheter, you might even roll your eyes and say, "What the heck is she teaching here?" But I can also share with you confidently that if you give it a try, you'll probably use this pattern going forward and never look back, because the pattern is that good. So my only request of you with this video is that you watch all 3 parts, particularly part 2 and part 3. Because throughout those parts, I'm going to share with you valuable information that is going to be hinging on your success. You may think you get it right out of the chute, but you're going to need some more information that we're going to share. So hang with me through the entire. If you can't watch it all, that's okay, because you can come back and visit us as often as you like. But please, if you would, make sure that you set aside enough time to watch the videos in entirety. So on that note, I'd like to get started with the pattern. Now, as I shared earlier, we are going to be crocheting a 24-inch by 34-inch oval rug. This is the exact rug that you're going to be making with me. So if you're going to follow along with us with this video, you are going to need some tools, some supplies. You're going to need to gather up a Q-size crochet hook, a 16-inch millimeter crochet hook. You're going to need a pair of shears. If you would, gather up 5 crochet markers. Now, if you've watched our other videos, you know that I'm really fond of these spring-loaded little hair pretties that you can find at Target or Walmart or whatever. If you've got these, this is great. You're going to need 5 of them. If you don't have those, don't run to the store. You're not going to need it. Go to your kitchen and find some little twist ties that you use for your baggies. Or if you've got some scrap fabric, you can use that too. But you're going to need, a few pieces of that as well. So on that note, let's get started creating our rug. Okay, so let's get started creating our rug. You're obviously going to need some fabric. So in order to make this 24 by 34-inch rug, you're going to need to have about 3 pounds or 12 yards of 2-inch wide pre-connected strips. So I've got mine all ready to go, and we're ready to get started. Now the first thing that we're going to do to create our rug is we're going to make a simple slip knot. And if you watched our other videos, you remember I've got a cute little way of making a slip knot. But if you're an avid crocheter and you already know how to make a slip knot, don't feel like you have to do it this way. It's just kind of a fun way for the beginners. So the way I like to teach the slip knot is to weave it between your fingers, pinching it at your pinky and your third finger, maybe about 6-9 inches draping down here, and wrap it around your other fingers all the way around, and pinch it again at your pinky and third finger. The first thing we're going to do is now feed off that first loop over your index finger, feed off the next loop, and we're going to grip this little remaining loop and give it a quick tug with a long piece of your fabric strip, just like that. We're going to use then the shorter piece to adjust the neck of that slip knot, and just like if you're adjusting a necktie, you're going to then use both to adjust it to exactly the way you want. I always try to say, try to visually be able to insert the tip of your pinky finger in the base of that loop that's on your hook, and that's where we want it to be. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do 10 foundational chains. In the crochet world, the abbreviation for foundational chains is FCH. We're going to refer to that from now on. But for right now, what we're going to do is do 10. Now, I like to drape the fabric lightly on the palm of my hand and secure it at the base of the loop that's on the hook. We're going to hook the fabric, draw it through the loop, and that's 1 foundational chain. We're going to do 9 more. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So hopefully we've got 10 now total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, we need 1 more. I can't count. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn and work those foundational chains. Now, those foundational chains are exactly that. They are the foundation of your rug. So they're the very center of your oval rug, and we're going to be building on those. So you're never going to see these stitches because we're going to be working both sides of those in the completion of your rug. So the first thing we're going to do now is we've turned and we're going to come back toward that very first chain. And we're going to do 1 single crochet in each of those, okay? Again, just draping the fabric lightly on the palm of my hand. I'm going to insert my hook in that very first stitch. We're going to hook the fabric, draw it through, 2 loops on my hook the fabric and draw it through both. And we're going to do that down this whole side. There's 2, next one, the next one, until we reach the very last one. And in that one, we're actually going to insert our hook 3 times total to increase as we make that turn around the end of your oval rug. So I'm almost there. One more. And this one, I need to roll out some more fabric here. Just drop it on the floor, Laura. Okay, so this one, what we're going to do is we're going to do 3 single crochets in that same last foundational chain. We've already done 1. I'm going to insert my hook a second time, keeping those stitches nice and open, and 1 more time. Okay? So far, so good? All right. So now we're going to come down the other side of those initial foundational chains, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. So we're going to turn. I'm going to insert my hook in that next stitch. We're in this one right now. The very next one is right here. Insert my hook, hook the fabric, and complete 1 single crochet stitch there, there. Here's the next one. Sometimes they're a little hard to find. 1 more here, 1 more here, and when we reach the very last one, we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to insert our hook 3 times in this very last stitch. All right, here's the last stitch. It's kind of on the turn here. You can just barely see it here. We're going to insert our hook once, twice, and the 3rd time here. Pretty easy so far, right? We just finished round 1. Now what we're going to do is we're going to repeat. In the crochet world, anytime you see these asterisks, that means there's going to be a repeat. And we're going to repeat this whole process right here 1 time. So we're going to come back down the other side. The only difference now is that they're not foundational chains. They're single crochet stitches, but otherwise they're exactly the same. So now we're going to insert a hook. We're in this space here. We're going to insert her here. And you notice I'm not necessarily counting the stitches. I just know that I'm going to do a single crochet stitch in each of those spaces. Now on this round, it's so much easier to tell where those stitches are. Keep on going until you get to the end. I don't need to count. There's no reason to count. Getting down to the very end, here's our last stitch. We've got 1 more here. And in that last one, again, we're going to do 3 single crochet stitches in that very last stitch. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to repeat on the other side. Same exact thing, a little different. 1 here, and we're going to go down this other side. All the way down this other side. Until we reach the very end. Should have unrolled more of my fabric. All right, about 2 more until we reach the end. There's 1 and 2. We're going to reach that end, and we're going to do 3 single crochets in this last stitch right here. 1, 2, and 3. All right. So far, so good, right? Okay, so before we get moving with the pattern, I want to review what we've done so far. So far, we did a simple slip knot. We did 10 foundational chains. We turned and we started working those initial foundational chains with single crochet stitches in each of those, ending with 3 on each end. Anytime we add these extra stitches, it's called an increase. You're increasing to relieve tension as you make the turn on your rug. And so we did 3 on the very last one. We turned and we started working the foundational chains on the other side, and we completed it with 3 on that end, again, to relieve tension. But also, what we do on one end of our rug, we need to always do on the other. So at this point, we've completed round 1, And our pattern calls for repeating that one more time because there's our asterisk. We're going to repeat this pattern right here, which is exactly what we did, if you'll recall. So we turned and we did 1 single crochet in each of those now single crochet stitches, SC. We did 3 single crochets on the end to relieve tension to make that turn. And we did the same thing on the other side. And at this point, we have now completed 2 rounds of our rug. But I want you to note these right here and right here that are clearly in red, okay? In just a minute now, we're going to continue with our pattern and you're going to see why that's so important. Okay, so we're getting ready to start back in on our pattern. If you'll recall, we did 3 single crochets on both ends of the first round and again on the second round. And if you'll notice this 3 single crochets, this 3 right here in red, it's going to be the equivalent of the pattern. This is our pattern that I'm going to teach you how to use now. Round 1, there's a big red 3. Round 2, there's a big red 3. The pattern, the actual pattern, is going to be here because the only time that you're going to need to refer to this pattern is what you're doing on the ends of your rug. You will never ever add any additional stitches to relieve tension on the sides of your rug, only on the end. So my pattern is very brief and is to the point. Round 1, we added 3 stitches on the end and on the other end because what we do on one end, we have to do on the other. And the same thing on round 2. And just like if you're using one of our cheat sheets, you can use a paper clip as your line marker. I'm going to use this blue piece of paper and we're going to move on down to the next round. Now, we are now starting round 3. So from now on, what I would like for you to do is I'd like for you to use your crochet markers, 4 of them eventually, to mark the pattern for round 3. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to draw an imaginary line up through the center of your rug and find that stitch that is most on center on end. And we're going to put a crochet marker right there, okay? I'm going to put mine right here. And I want you to pretend that this is the rug, and we're going to read right of center. The stitch that's right of center is a number 1, and then right of that is a number 2. Wherever you see 2, we're going to put another crochet marker, okay? I'm going to put ours right here. Now we're going to turn left of center. Round 3 is a 2, 1, 1, 1, 2. Here is the 1, which is the stitch that is most on center on end on this end of our rug. To the left of that is a 1, to the left of that is a 2, and I'm going to put a crochet marker. What does that mean actually? Well, wherever there is a 2, just like this 3 here, we're going to insert our hook a second time in that space to relieve tension on the bend of your rug. Does that make any sense? Now at this point we can take out this center stitch, this red one here, because we don't need it anymore. All we care about is this stitch and this stitch. So as we're crocheting down this side now, let me show you. We don't even have to think. We can go back to watching TV with our family because now we're going to be just putting single crochet stitches in each of these as we're coming down this side. Okay, and when we reach that crochet marker where the 2 is on our pattern, we're going to insert our hook a second time in that space. As simple as that. We're getting close. All right, we've reached it. I'm going to remove the crochet marker. I'm going to insert my hook once to do a single crochet stitch and once more in that same space. There's no more crochet markers until I get clear over here, so these next ones are just going to be 1. Insert my hook 1 time, move on to the next stitch, 1 time, and 1 time. We've reached another crochet marker. I'm going to take that out, set it aside, and we know this next stitch we're going to insert it 2 times. 1 and 2. Now, at this point, whatever we do on one end of our rug, we have to do on the other end. So we're going to turn our rug, and we're going to now mark our pattern on the other side. So we're going to establish which stitch, making that imaginary line down the center of your rug, is most on center on end. It's very obvious. It's this one here. I'm going to mark it. We're now going to read right of center. Here's the one we just marked. To the right of that is a 1. To the right of that is a 2. That means we're going to insert our hook a second time right here to relieve tension. Reading left of center, this next stitch is a 1, and this is a 2. We're going to mark that 2 there, and at this point we can remove this one. So now we know that all these stitches here along the side are all going to be single until we hit this crochet marker, and we're going to insert our hook a second time in that space. So here we go. 1, 2, right down the side we go. Fast and easy. We've reached this crochet marker, and what are we going to do? We're going to insert our hook 2 times in that space. Now dropping our crochet hook. We're going to insert our hook here, 1, and a second one, because we're rounding the band. We need to relieve a little bit of tension. And there's nothing to do in these next ones, so we're just going to do single crochet stitches until we reach our crochet marker, which is right here. Set that aside, and we're going to insert our hook a second time in that space. 1, 2. Okay, so now at this point, I'm going to move my crochet marker down to round 4. We're already on round 4. If you're following along with your cheat sheet, just push down the little paper clip down to the next round, and you can follow along with me on your card or on here. Now again, looking down the other end, the first thing we're going to do is mark the stitch that's most on center on end. Now this time it looks like it could be this one or this one. It's kind of hard to tell because they're both kind of straddling the fence there. You're going to pick one. It doesn't matter if it's this one or this one because your rug is going to self-correct. I can promise you that. So just pick one, whichever one you want. I'm going to pick this one here. Now we're going to read right of the center line, this imaginary line where we set this crochet marker, which is aligning with that red number 1. To the right of it is a 1, and there's a 2. So we're going to put a marker there. There's a 1 and a 2. We're going to put a crochet marker here. Now we're going to read left of center. Here's our center line. The stitch to the left of it is a 1, then a 2, a 1, and a 2. So we're going to put another crochet marker here, and we're going to remove this original 1. We're going to reinsert our crochet hook, and we're going to continue on the first half of round 4. These are all going to be single crochet stitches. Again, I'm watching a movie with my family, I'm talking, I don't even have to think, because when I hit that crochet marker, I already know that all I have to do is do 2 single crochet stitches in that space. These are just all single crochet stitches here. Oops, there's that crochet marker. I'm going to do 2 in that space. 1, 2. The next stitch is a 1. And now we'll do the crochet marker again, and we're going to insert our hook 2 times in that space. 1, 2. Those are increases to relieve tension. The next 3 are just single crochet stitches. 1, 2, and 3. We've now reached the number 2, which is right here. I'm going to remove the crochet marker, insert my hook 2 times in that space to relieve tension on the turn. 1, 2. The next one is a 1. And the next one, the final one of our pattern, is a 2. 1 and 2. Okay, so now we need to repeat this pattern on the other end. What you do on one side, you always have to do on the other side. We never ever increase on the sides of your rug, only on the end, and this is the pattern for round 4. So I'm going to raise this up, and we're going to establish which stitch is most on center on end. We're going to mark that. Again, we're going to read right of center. This stitch is a 1. This next stitch, whoops, it's a 2. That means we need to put a crochet marker. There's a 1 and then a 2. We're now going to read left of center. Here's that one that's most center on end, which is denoted with the red number 1. To the left of that is a 1, and then a 2, a 1, and then a 2. And we can now remove the 1 on center. These stitches here, all 4 of them will be 2. You're going to insert your hook a second time. But aside from that, you don't have to think at this point. So I'm going to unwind some more fabric here real fast. And we're going to go finish up round 4. Here's 1, 2, on down the pike. Again, I'm counting because it's just kind of habit. But you don't have to count any of these stitches because you know what you're going to do next. This one, you already know. We're going to insert your hook a second time in that space. It's an increase. That means you're going to use that space to relieve tension on this band. This is a single. Remove this marker. We're going to insert our hook 2 times in that space. 1, 2. We don't have another marker until clear over there, so here's 1, 2, 3. Those are those center numbers right here. And now guess what? Here's a crochet marker. No big deal. All we do is insert our hook a second time in that space. 1, 2, 1 in the next space right here. And we remove a crochet marker, and we know that we're going to do 2 there. 1 and 2. Now, at this point, I want to teach you a trick that you're going to love. This tail, and some people in the crochet world, when they're making these rugs, they say, weave in that tail when you're first making your rug, right? I'm going to suggest that you not weave it in, and instead what we're going to do is we're going to tuck it up through and bring it on through to the front of your rug. From now on, that tail is going to be your clue that you're starting a new round. If you finish the pattern on this end, and you're starting down this side of your rug, and it's on the same end as your tail, the tail that was on the back, that we've now moved to the front, you're starting a new round. So if you're following along with your cheat sheet, move your paper clip down, and you and I are going to start on already round 5. Super easy. Don't see anything different there, do you? But the first thing we're going to do is, as we always do, is mark the stitch, this red one, most on center on end, right here. To the right of it is a 1, and then there's 2, and yet another 2. Super, super easy. Marking our pattern to the left of center is your 1, 1, and then 2, 2. So far, so good? All right. I'm going to go back to our rug. I'm going to leave off some more of my roll here, so I have plenty. We're almost halfway done with our rug already. Can you believe this? All right, so we know, without any hesitation, that every one of these stitches here are all single crochet stitches. And we're getting close to a crochet marker. Do you see how flat this is already laying and how perfectly shaped it is? All right, there's one more right here. We've hit a crochet marker. In fact, we hit 2. So I'm going to say that the next 2 are going to be both increases. 1, and insert again that same space, and again here. 1 and 2. I can remove this one because this is the one that we marked the center, stitch most on center on end. And I know that the next 3 are singles. 1 single crochet, 2, and you have 1 more. Following my pattern, I know that both of these are increases. I'm going to take them both out and just remind myself that the next 2 stitches, we're going to insert our hook a second time. Pretty easy, right? There's 2 in that one and 2 in that one. And what we do on one end of our rug, we always have to remember to do it on the other end. So we're going to repeat this pattern on the other end of our rug. And if you'll notice, my tail is on this end. That means we're just started the pattern on this end. We still need to do it on this end. First thing you're going to do, very repetitive, but you're going to establish which stitch is most on center on end by drawing an imaginary line up through the center of your rug and mark it with a crochet marker. To the right of that, here's that red number 1, the center stitch. To the right of that is a 1, and then a 2, and a 2. Same thing on the other side. There's that red number 1 right here. There's a 1 to the left of it, and then 2, and 2. So now we can continue moving on. We don't even have to think about what we're doing. Some more fabric unrolled here, so I have plenty. All right, single crochet stitches all the way down the side. We never ever add additional stitches or increases to the side of our rug, only on the ends or on the corners. Let me say that. All the way down. You can watch TV, you can talk to your family, you can do all kinds of fun stuff while you're making this rug because there's not a whole lot of dependence on a written pattern. The same patterns that confused me because I simply couldn't process it. And if I could, I would lose my place every time I would start. 2 here, 1, 2, 2 here, 1, oops, 2, take out that center stitch, this one right here. I don't need that anymore. The next 3 are going to be just singles, no increases, and then reading over here, both of those, I keep dropping my crochet hook. Both of these are going to be 2, so we're going to insert our hook a second time in both of those spaces. And would you believe, with that, we are already starting the next round. Okay, so before we move on to round 6, halfway through our rug, that's 12 by 24, or 24 by 34, I like to review a few things. The first thing that you're going to do whenever you see this pattern is you're going to mark the stitch that's most on end by using an imaginary line. Just kind of use your eyes, determine which stitch is most on center and end, and that's what you're going to mark with the red denotation here in the numbers. Now there may be times when there's 2 stitches and you don't know which one is most on center on end. All you have to do is pick one. Your rug will self-correct and it will be perfect, I promise. One thing to remember is that you will never ever increase you'll always increase, on the ends, never on the sides of your rugs. And last, what you do in one corner, you must do in the other 3, or on one end, you have to do on the other end. So we're getting ready now to move our crochet markers down to round 6, and you can do the same thing with your paper clip on your cheat sheet right there. Now the first thing, again, here's our tail. We know that we're moving toward that tail. That means we are indeed starting a new round. That round happens to be round 6. We're going to mark the red number 1 right here with the stitch that's most on center on end. It appears to be this one. To the right of that is a 1, 1, 2. This is a really simple one. And to the left of that is a 1, 1, 2. You can now remove the marker you put to center up the center of this, and now we're going to go down the side of this to start on the first half of round 6. These are all single crochet stitches. Keep those stitches nice and loose and open. All right, as we get close to our crochet marker, as you now know, you're going to remove that marker, and that's going to tell you to insert your hook a second time in that space. Why? Because that is what's considered an increase. I didn't need to put this in the pattern. You're just always going to know that that number 2, wherever it is always going to be your increase. There's one more stitch, and an increase again is to relieve tension on the bend of your rug. There's 2 is right here. It's your second time. Now it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that we don't even have to think about it. 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's that 5th one. We didn't have to think about that. We just know there's nothing there. There's no crochet marker, so that means a single crochet stitch. there's our marker. I'm going to take it out, and I know this next stitch right here, we're going to put 2. 1 and 2. What we do on one end, we have to do on the other end. And so now we're going to mark the pattern on this end. This one is obviously the most stitched most on center on end. There's our marker. To the right of that is a 1, 1, mark it there with a 2. To the left of that is a 1, 1, 2, mark it. We can remove the center one, and away we go again. I grow plenty of fabric, so we're just going to keep on trucking here until my arms get tired from trying to hold this up. That's the only hard part for me to do in these videos. There we go. Look how big this rug's getting already, and look at how the shape of this rug. Is it not gorgeous? Even as I'm working it, it just lays so beautiful. It will be shaped so perfectly. Your rug won't be wonky. There won't be any issues at all. You're not going to have issues with it waffling or buckling. Your rug will lay perfectly flat. It'll be absolutely beautiful. And guess what? We've already gotten to that crochet mark. I'm going to take it out. I know that I'm going to insert my hook a second time in that space. 1, 2. We both know now that it's to relieve tension by increasing. Around the corner we go. There's no crochet markers here, so these are just single stitches here. One more, and I reach crochet marker. I'm going to insert my hook 2 times. And as you already know, now looking at your rug, there's that tail right there. And you know now that we are starting a new round. Okay, so we're already ready for round 7. I'm going to move my crochet marker down. Oh my goodness, look how simple this little pattern is. And again, if you've got your card, move your paper clip down, and we're ready to go. You now know the first thing that we're going to do is mark the stitch most on center on end. It's so obvious, it's this one here. To the right is a 1, to the right of that is a 2. Talk about easy, right? Feels like we just went back to kindergarten. To the left of that is a 1. To the left of that is, there's our 2. We're going to take this one out, and here we go again. All right. Right down the side. I can almost close my eyes and do this. It's so simple. I definitely can watch a movie. I do that a whole lot better than I do books. I can't read books, but hey, I can watch movies, especially if they're dubbed. It makes it a little bit easier for my dyslexic brain. Down the side. Keep those stitches nice and open. Friends, this is really important. Don't get them tight. Keep them nice and open and consistent as you can. And here we go, a couple more. 1, 2, and we reach that trusty crochet marker that's denoting that 2 right there. We're going to insert our hook a second time in that space because we're making that turn on that corner. And the next 3 by my pattern show just singles. And then we reach the crochet marker. 1 and 2. Next thing we do before we do anything else is mark our pattern on the other end, because what we do on one end we have to do on the other end. So I'm going to mark the pattern here. To the right of it is a 1 and then a 2. To the left is a 1 and a 2. Following along with our pattern on round 7 already. Now you can remove this one. We don't need him anymore. Got a few more stitches on this one because we're getting pretty big, aren't we? These are all single crochet stitches. If you look down on my pattern, you can see that this one's very easy compared to this. But I can assure you, there's really no difference at all, other than just where you're going to mark your pattern with your crochet markers. keep on going. Lisa does such a good job of filming me and doing this. I tell you, I don't know how she can hold that camera as long as she can, or as long as she does, because I can barely hold this crochet hook for this long. All right, here we are. This one here, so we got one more. And then there's our crochet marker. 2 in that spot, right? 1 and 2. And here we go. We've reached another crochet marker. We're going to insert our hook a second time in that space. I caught it with my legs. And now, as you can see, we are approaching the tail on the other side of our rug, which is your cue that we are starting another round already. We're going to move this down to round 8, and oh my goodness, look at this. But I have faith that you can tackle this. So what we're going to do first, we're going to look at that red number 1 right there, and we're going to mark our pattern, the stitch most on center on end. We're going to read to the right of it. There's a 1, a 2, crochet marker goes there, 1, 1, 1, and there's a 2 right there. This is pretty cool, isn't it, guys? Now to the left of that center. Here's that center line there. There's a 1, 2, we're going to mark it, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2. There's our marker. I'm going to mark it there. You can remove the center one, and we're going to start already on round 8. All the way around we go. So got plenty of fabric. We're doing good. My arm's not too tired. Sure Lisa's is though. Getting close to that marker. Now when you look at this pattern and you see how elementary it is versus the patterns that you probably have in your craft room where there's pages and pages of parentheses and repeats and everything else. Here's that next marker, so I'm going to take it out while I talk. I insert a hook second time there. And I don't know about you, but when I would follow those patterns, or attempt to anyway, I'd get lost every time and I'd have to start over, rip out, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, where was I? I have no idea. Our marker is here. I remove it, insert a hook second time there. And as you can see, our rug is still perfectly flat. It's perfectly shaped. I'm not doing anything special. I'm just going to follow along with this fun little pattern that I wrote. Here's our marker. I'm going to remove it. 1, 2, and that happens to be this one right here. I already know that the next 3 are going to be singles. 1, 2. When I teach classes with this pattern, all of a sudden the class will say, oh my gosh, I get it, I get it. And I'm hoping that that's what your reaction is now too. This very last one now, I just remove the marker. 1, 2, in that spot. Turn our work. We're going to do the same thing on the other end. We're going to find where that imaginary line dictates that this is the stitch most on center on end. Reading right is a 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2. Reading left of center. Here's our center one. A 1 to the left, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2. I'm already going to tell you that what we're going to do is I'm going to take this off in just a minute. I'm going to have you do 2 rounds by yourself. Okay? So I'm going to finish this one, and then I'm going to give you a challenge like we did on the last one and see if you can do it by yourself. I'm going to go around here until I reach that marker. Here we go. You see how big this rug is getting already? There's our marker, remove that. 2 in that space. Got 1, 2, 3, because that's what our pattern calls out. This one is a 2, where I just removed the marker. 1, insert our hook again, 2. The next 3 are 1s. 1 single crochet there, 1 there, 1 there, and we're going to insert our hook a second time right here. 1, 2. The next 3 are singles. 1, 2, 3, and the last one where the marker is a 2. All right, we just finished round 8. We did the pattern on one end, we repeated on the other end, and now I'm going to give you a challenge. I'm going to see if you can complete round 9 and 10 by yourself. This is much more abbreviated, but it's the same thing. You're going to do 1, establish where the stitch most on center on end. You're going to mark your pattern to the right and to the left. You're going to do the same thing on both ends, and then you're going to do the same thing on round 10. The only difference is the stitch that you're going to establish most on center on end is actually a 2. So you're going to leave that marker in, but then there's going to be this expanse of 6 stitches before you get to another 2. So I want you to do round 9 and 10 and come back with me, and I'm going to do the same thing, okay? Okay, so welcome back. I'm curious how you did with rounds 9 and 10. I've gotten mine done, and we're very close to finishing up this 24 by 34 rug. There's not a whole lot difference, right, between 9 and 10. The only difference is that the stitches are a little bit more staggered out here. There's a lot more 1s out here before you reach the 2. But also, on round 10, that stitch that we marked most on center on end, that happens to be a 2. And so it's one of the 2, and then you've got 6 and a 2 on this side. You got the 2 here, 6 on this side, and that's it. But other than that, the extra number of single crochet stitches, there's not a whole lot difference between this and this, right? Well, now we're getting ready to start round 11. So we're going to do the same thing, only different. Look at this beautiful rug, and the size of this rug is just gorgeous. As always, we're going to mark the stitch most on center on end on round 11. And I know that it's a new round because there's my tail. As I'm approaching that tail, it's my indication, my clue that we're starting a new round. It happens to be round 11. We have 12 rounds is all on this rug. So there's our number 1, and we'll mark it there. To the right of it is a 1, and then a 2 that I'm going to mark. And then 1, 1, 1, 2, and I'm going to mark that with our crochet marker. Reading left of center then, here's our center, the red one here. To the left is a 1, 2 with our crochet marker, 1, 1, 1, and a 2. And at this point, you can remove your center. And again, just like before, that you've done on your own for 2 rounds, I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to crochet down this side. Hopefully you can see it because the rug is getting so big now that it's kind of hard for me to hold it up. But we are within 1 round of sharing with you my favorite part of this video, and that is how to make those larger rugs. And you are going to be so impressed at how easy it is to do those. So let me keep on going here until we reach that crochet marker, which, as you know now, confidently, with no hesitation, that you're just going, only thing you're going to do is insert your hook a second time there as an increase to relieve tension on this turn. Oops. Reached our crochet marker. I'm going to remove it. 2 here, 1 and 2. And on around, 1, 2, 3, and we've just reached our crochet marker, which is this stitch right here. I'm going to remove that. 2 in this space. Whoop, I messed up. That was our center one. That is not a 2. That was our center one right here. Sorry about that, guys. We're going to continue on with singles. See, I'm looking at the wrong pattern. See how easy that was for me to correct that, though. And now we're at this stitch right here. This 2 here. I'm going to remove it. Insert my hook a second time in that space. 1, 2. Now we've got 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3 before we reach our next crochet marker, indicating that we're going to insert our hook a second time in this next space right here. Remove that. 1 and 2. What you do on one end of your rug, you need to repeat. So I'm going to turn my rug. First thing, as you know now, I'm going to mark the stitch most on center on end. To the right of that is a 1, and then a 2, and then a 1, 1, 1, 2. Reading left of center. Here's our number 1. To the left is a 1, and then a 2. 1, 1, 1, 2. Like what I did last time, we can remove this stitch now, and we're going to continue on. And here we go. Let me move my work over a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. Those stitches nice and open as you're working your rug. Work to keep your stitches as consistent as you can. Oh, keep losing my stitches. Maybe it means my arms are getting tired. Close, guys. Just also proof that in this short video, how quickly you can make these rugs. It doesn't take very long at all when you're following a pattern as simple as this. It's nearly foolproof. Just remove my crochet marker, so I'm going to insert my hook a second time there. Right here. The next 3 are singles. And the cool part too is that you can invest this time and money in making rugs knowing confidently that your rug is going to be beautiful. It's going to be perfectly shaped. It's going to be the exact size that you set out to make. It's not going to waffle. It's not going to buckle. It's going to be an absolutely stunning rug for yourself, for a friend, for a family member. I'm confused here. Oops, that's what I thought. This one has to be 2 right there. I took it out and then I didn't do a 2. See how easy that was to correct though? But can you imagine if I can make this rug with this short video as quickly as we're making it, how fast you can make rugs for all your family. Okay, so we're going to stop right there, and I want you to take a peek at this beautiful rug. My fabric is rolling all over my floor right now. Look at this rug. We have 1 more round to go. I'm going to pick this up so you can see it clearly. 1 single crochet around. So there's no marking it with our crochet markers. What you're going to do is you're going to crochet all the way around. Here's our tail, which means we started round 12, the next round. And all you're going to do without marking it is come all the way around, and you're going to do that on your own, and I'm going to do the same, and we're going to meet up in just a second because the most exciting part of this video is about to happen. So hang with me, okay? So I left you on your own on the very last round, round 12, because frankly it was pretty easy. There's no pattern. You didn't have to use any crochet markers. All you had to do was do 1 single crochet around. And if I measured this right now, and you'll probably measure your own, this measures exactly 24 inches by 34 inches, the exact size that we set out to make. So the last round, if you notice, we did 1 single crochet around. Anytime you finish your rug, always finish it off with a single crochet stitch. So if you're going to add a scallop border, you can certainly do that, but make sure that you always finish it with a single crochet stitch. No increases, because you want that outer edge of your rug to be as smooth as you can possibly make it. It's going to present so much better if you do that. Now, we're going to move on to our next round, which is my favorite part, and that is how to use this pattern that I just taught you, using this simple technique to make virtually any size rug. And again, this is my favorite part, so hang with me just a minute, I'll be right back with you. So at the beginning of the video, I promised you that the last part of this special video was on how to make larger rugs. And in my opinion, this is not just the most exciting part, but it's possibly the most important part too. Because once you understand this part, all of this is going to make total sense. And again, you're going to be able to confidently take orders for any size of rug whatsoever. You're going to be able to make rugs for your family and friends, whatever size is going to fit into that small or large space. But the one thing that you have to understand is, how do you make your rugs bigger? And it's super easy. Just like this pattern is super easy, this process is super easy. So I want you to remember back when we first started this video, and I said we were going to be making a 24 by 34 inch oval rug. And I asked you to do 10 foundational chains. Why 10? What was the relevance of that? Well, here's that 24 by 34, okay? The way we arrived at that, the way that I arrived at that, and you and I did this together to arrive at this perfectly shaped 24 by 34 rug, is we took the finished length dimension here, minus the finished width dimension. The difference between the two is how many foundational chains you're going to start with. And if you're curious how many rounds you're going to need to make to finish this size rug, you're going to take that finished width, divided by 2, equal 12 rounds. We just finished, with this rug we did in this demonstration, 12 rounds. But that's this size of rug. What if you wanted to make this size bigger? What's going to happen if you keep on crocheting around this rug? What's going to happen is it's no longer going to be oval. It's going to start making it into a round rug. And that's not what we want. What you need to do if you want a different size rug is elongate it. And the way you elongate it is by those initial foundational chains. So case in point, let's decide that you have a customer that calls and says, can you make me a 30 by 54? And you're going to say, well, of course I can. So let's put the 30 by 54 up here, okay? Now, it's real simple math. In order to determine how many foundational chains that you're going to start your rug out, that very initial stitches, to elongate the rug, to determine and to confidently know that your rug is going to end up this size, you're going to take that 54 minus the 30, which is your finished width dimension. The difference between the two is 24 foundational chains. Not 10, but 24. And then you're going to start in on the pattern, okay? Now, if you're curious how many rounds you're going to make to get to this size, you're going to divide 30 in half to determine 15 rounds. Your next question to me, we're going to answer in just a second, is, well, the pattern was only for 12 rounds. What do I do now on these next 3 rounds? And I'm going to answer that for you. Let's do one more, just so make sure that you understand what we're talking about here. What if a customer calls and says, okay, I know this is kind of an oddball size, but can you make me a rug that's 22 by 78? And you're going to say, absolutely, I can certainly do that. And the way you're going to calculate how many foundational chains is to take that 78 minus your finished width, 22, equal 56 foundational chains to arrive at a rug this size. That's a lot of foundational chains, particularly when we just did 10 on this demonstration rug, right? If you want to know how many rounds, you're going to take this 22, divide it in half, and you're going to need to complete 11 rounds, okay? And your finished rug, when you're all done at round 11, will be this size. But let's go back to the one before, because I left you with a question in your heads. What about these extra 3 rounds? What are we going to do about that? Because the pattern on the cheat sheet, it doesn't go that high. It only goes to round 12, right? What are we going to do on these extra 3 rounds in order to get to this size of rug? Well, we are now going to convert to a technique that I dub crocheting on demand. This is mine. You're not going to find this in any crochet books. Grandma would not have taught you what this term was. You're not going to find this anywhere but here. It's called crocheting on, and I put in parentheses, tension demand. I'm going to put this right here, okay? This is what we call. Now, from now on, when you crochet your rug, you're still going to use those handy little crochet markers. But as you crochet, again, remember that you're only going to add additional stitches to relieve tension on the ends, specifically in the corners in this particular case, okay? So as you are crocheting, if it feels like it's too far of a reach to get to the next stitch without buckling your rug, then you need to add another stitch at that point, okay? Just remember that what you do at that point, you need to do in the other 4, and you need to use your crochet markers to mark that space and the other 3 in approximately the same space. It doesn't have to be exact. We don't need to count here. So we always want our stitches to be straight up and down as we're working them. If it starts leaning towards your hook, you have a tension concern at that point. To straighten it back up, you're going to add another stitch in that spot. Now, it may be that you may go 2 or 3 more stitches, and all of a sudden your stitches are leaning towards your hook. And you know by just looking at it that if you skipped over to that next stitch, it's going to buckle your rug, right? So at that point, you need to add another stitch in that space, just like our increases on our pattern, right? By adding that extra stitch there, it relieves tension, and you can move on without buckling your rug. But the trick is this, is that when you are using this technique called crocheting on tension demand, you will never ever add more than 2 additional stitches in any given corner. You may just add 1, you may add 2, or you may add none, but never ever more. So I don't care if your rug is to be 9 feet. You're never ever going to have a need to add more than 2 additional stitches in any given corner. It could be 1, where you're going to increase by, insert your hook a second time. It could be 2, where you may need to here as well as here. Or it may be that you go all the way around and there was no tension concerns at all. For instance, that single crochet around, look how beautifully flat this rug is. It's perfectly shaped and it's perfectly flat. You can lay it anywhere you want without any adjustments. You don't have to pull and tug and everything else. Your rug will always lay perfectly flat. But just remember that when you're working the larger rugs, which the 30 by 54 is going to be one of those, is that you're only going to be adding additional stitches in the 4 quadrants of your rug. And what you add here, you need to add in approximately the same place in the other 4 corners. And you can continue using this technique, this crochet on demand, for the entire rug. And again, I don't care if it gets to be 9 foot or 15 foot or whatever. 1, 2, or none. Never more. They're the same increase as what we used here. Where there's a 2, you needed to increase by adding another stitch in that space. But if you'll notice on this entire pattern, with the exception of here, we never added more than 1 stitch there. And we never added more increases on any given corner than 2. Right? Never ever. So the same thing holds true here, but you're going to take in consideration that from now on, once you reach the pattern, once you're done with the pattern, you will convert to crochet on demand, and you are going to assess your own personal tension. 1, 2, or none. Okay, so I know that we went over very quickly this technique called crocheting on demand, But there is another video on our YouTube channel that covers this very, very thoroughly. So I would invite you to watch this video and go into it more and more in detail. And I think you're really going to enjoy it because honestly, making larger rugs is so simple. It all has to do with those initial foundational chains. Just do your simple math and you'll understand that, and then convert to this once you've completed those initial 12 rounds. So hopefully this is clear. I hope it is anyway. But if it's not on this part of it, again, check out the other channel. It's called Making Larger Rugs on our YouTube channel. Now, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much. We appreciate you more than you have any idea. Please, when you're on our channel, subscribe. And as Lisa pointed out on an earlier video, hit that little bell because you'll be notified every time that we introduce a new video. And on that note, I've got my list here so I don't forget anything. We've already got slated for the next 6 videos. The next one's going to be on making toothbrush rugs, a really great instructional video that we've got planned. We've got a beginner's class for children and for beginner adults that we have planned, a really great rug that I think you'll enjoy making. We're going to do a video on how to make crocheted rugs using plastic bags. And we've also got a really special video planned on our twine weaving. We have a twine weaving division in our company, and we've got some really great videos planned on how to warp your frame as well as how to twine weave. We've got a whole segment on fabric art. So if you ever wonder what to do with those little scraps of fabric, I've got some really great ideas I think you're going to enjoy. And last, just in the very near future, we're going to do some product reviews because there's a lot of products out there that will help you in your rug making, and I've experienced some really awesome ones that I want to do a product review and share those with you. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments at all about this video, or for that matter any others, we check in every single day and respond to your comments, to your questions, or your kudos, and we appreciate those very, very much. So leave them below or on any of the videos. Check in often. Please make sure you subscribe. And back to this, make sure you watch the video in its entirety because I want you to be successful. So in the meantime, make it a great day.